Today I want to talk about the thesis statement and skeleton outline. Hello, my name is Benjamin Stewart at benjaminlstewart.net, making teaching and learning more transparent. Today's March 31st, 2022, and before we get into today's topic, if you have any insights, opinions, experiences on writing and specifically looking at thesis statements and creating outlines, feel free to reach out to me at my Twitter handle at BNLEEZ. Today I want to talk about the thesis statement and skeleton outline, and I'm specifically thinking about those of you who are writing essays, specifically those of you who are English language learners, how to get started when you're thinking about a problem statement, you're thinking about a topic of some significance, perhaps it's based on your own personal experience, either as a teacher or a learner. And as you're coming together and getting these ideas together for a thesis statement, I want to present some ways to go about developing a thesis statement leading into later a skeleton outline. So when you're developing your thesis statement, I typically think of it as having 5 different sections. And in this order, we typically want to begin with a transition. So remember that the thesis statement is going to be located at the end of an introduction paragraph. Usually in that introduction paragraph, you're going to be developing a problem, some kind of context of the problem. Maybe you're talking about the what, the how, the why, the when, the where, perhaps the with whom aspect of the problem. And that's going to be really the basis of an introduction paragraph. You'll begin with a hook, you'll conclude with a thesis statement, but you'll be developing the problem, the context of the problem there within the introduction paragraph. So when you're beginning your thesis statement, you'll need a transition that moves from the context of the problem to now your central claim. That is your main position for your essay. This is going to represent the main idea of your entire essay. So a type of transition will be needed, I think, to move and connect the idea from the problem to your main claim. Now, there are different ways that you can do this. You can offer a sentence connector. You can use an introductory phrase, maybe even a subordinating clause. Now, with subordinating clauses, I oftentimes see a lot of subordinating clauses that begin with the subordinating conjunction because. And since many of you are answering the question why, you'll typically also have another subordinating clause or subordinating conjunction because later on in your thesis. So if that's the case, if you are using the connector because, answering the question why, then perhaps either use a different subordinating conjunction if you want to begin with a subordinating clause, or perhaps choose a different type of transition. Again, sentence connector or an introductory phrase might be your best option. After you've offered a transition, now we're going to need a topic. This is going to be the subject of your sentence. This is going to be the subject of your thesis statement. So try to avoid personal pronouns at this point. So you're going to introduce the topic, the subject of your sentence, by explicitly stating the topic itself. Ways to make your topic a little bit more specific. You could use a relative clause. You could use an appositive. You could use different adjectives to make your topic or the subject a little bit more specific. But it should relate to your target audience. Think about to whom you're writing your essay, who would benefit the most having read your essay, and that also is something to consider whenever you're thinking about the topic, the subject of your thesis statement. Also try to avoid there is, there are. Now, after you've offered a transition, you have stated the subject, the topic of your thesis statement. Now you're going to introduce an opinion or a claim, or you're going to take a position. You can also think of it as a proposition. This is going to be primarily the verb phrase that's going to follow the topic. One important thing to consider when you're writing your verb phrase, as your claim, your main claim, try to avoid linking verbs or copula verbs. Try to avoid the verb to be in most cases. That's the verb I see most often. Sometimes I see the verb to become. Try to avoid altogether linking verbs in your thesis statement. This also applies to your topic sentences, we'll talk about here in a few minutes. That would be what I take into consideration when you're developing your main claim in your thesis statement. Now, after you've introduced your claim, we're going to need some kind of connector before we introduce our key points. Now, the connector is very much related to the type of question that you're answering. Remember that we spent some time working on a problem statement, identifying the indirect question, converting that to a direct question, and then posing a thesis statement that directly relates or answers the direct question. So the connector, the type of connector, will very much depend on the question word that you're using. The most common types of questions usually that we are dealing with are how questions or why questions. A how question will require usually the preposition by, so that you can introduce ways, different ways that relate to the claim that you're making. Or maybe you have a why question, and then probably because, the subordinating conjunction because will be the most common option for you. Right? The because clause, the subordinating clause, will introduce three key points that should, in this case, answer reasons. Reasons why something happens, again, as it relates to your central claim. So after you have your connector, you have your key points, and our key points should be either words or phrases. Sometimes they could be clauses. But the point here is that we want to introduce our key points, 3 key points specifically, so that they correspond directly with the 3 body paragraphs that will follow. So the first key point that you introduce in your thesis statement will be the basis for your first topic sentence and your first body paragraph. Second key point will be the basis for the second topic sentence and the second body paragraph, and so on. So your 5 main parts to a thesis statement are as follows: the transition, topic, your main claim or position, a connector of some kind or a preposition, and then you'll conclude with 3 key points. And because we have 3 key points, we'll need the serial comma. We'll have 3 points, and we'll need 2 commas there to separate the first 2 points before saying and then listing the third key point. So here in the show notes, you'll see an example, and I would follow this as an example structurally if you're looking at it from a grammatical standpoint. And you'll see the color codes here that correspond with each of the 5 points that we're discussing here today. So once you've developed your thesis statement, now we're going to get into the skeleton outline. And the skeleton outline now will take each of those 3 key points that you listed at the end of your thesis statement, and we'll develop complete sentences that will begin our body paragraphs. The skeleton outline basically consists of 4 key sentences. Number 1, the thesis statement. And number 2, the 3 topic sentences that will later become the first sentence of each of your body paragraphs. The skeleton outline might also include evidence, maybe includes just points or links to the evidence that you plan to use. This just allows us to be assured that we have the support that will align with each of our topic sentences that will be later included in those body paragraphs. This will give you an idea at a glance whether or not you have support. As you're reading, as you are developing your skeleton outline, your thesis statement, it requires, as you know, a lot of reading of different articles. So this is an opportunity for you to include that evidence there so you can see at a glance that you are sure that you have the support that you need before you begin the writing process, before you begin writing, let's say, the first body paragraph. So here in this case, we simply want to list out our topic sentences. Make sure that the topic sentences are complete sentences. You have a subject and a predicate. Make sure to try to avoid there is, there are. Try to avoid linking verbs in each of your 3 topic sentences. Finally, make sure that the thesis statements, make sure that the topic sentences are specific enough so that you're not trying to do too much in each of the body paragraphs. The topic sentences should state an idea that's more specific than the idea that you presented in your thesis statement. But I would use some degree direct repetition, that is, repeat some of the same key words that you're using in your thesis statement. As you have listed as your key points, use those same words in your topic sentences. In most cases, and many cases probably, it's going to be your best option to include it as a subject of your topic sentences, those key words that you included in the topic sentences. Now, maybe that's not always the case, but certainly consider how you or where you can place those key words so that they stand out. They have an impact when you're developing your topic sentence. So this is the relationship here between the thesis statement and the skeleton outline, making sure that we're aligning the evidence to the topic sentences within each body paragraph, and that we're aligning the topic sentences back to the key points that we have listed at the end of our thesis statement. My name is Benjamin Stewart at benjaminlstewart.net. Thanks for listening.